You're listening to the Small Business Accelerator podcast, accelerating success, one founder at a time.
With your hosts, Roger Bryant and Sarah Wilson.
We support small business owners, the little guys. We're here to help you win in today's landscape.
Join us each week as we reveal powerful strategies for small business owners that save you time and money.
Because we believe every small business owner should have access to Fortune 500 style strategies without breaking the bank.
Subscribe now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to accelerate your small business success.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're tackling a topic that came straight from you guys.
No, real?
Yeah, a bunch of listeners wanted us to break down how technician roles are becoming automation specialist roles and how to actually make that jump. So we've got excerpts from Automate Your Way Out of the Technician Role.
Okay.
And info about that Automations Made Easy online course to guide us.
Interesting stuff. It really is the perfect time to be looking at this. The demand for automation skills is just booming right now.
Yeah. Makes you wonder why, though, right? Is it really that?
And not just in like the typical manufacturing you might think.
Really?
Yeah, it's all over the place, all sorts of industries.
That actually ties in perfectly with what we've got here. It says that automation technicians are kind of already essential, but a lot of folks don't even realize it. It's not just fixing stuff anymore. It's about electrical, mechanical, and then all that automation tech on top of it.
And that's the core of why those technician roles are changing so much. The tech is getting really complex. Companies need people who can keep things running, sure, but also design the systems, actually implement them, even make them better.
So it's not enough to just like know the basics anymore. Right. You got to be way more specialized. I noticed the document mentions some new job titles popping up.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What are some of those and what makes them so important?
Well, think about control systems technicians.
Okay.
Almost like the conductor of an orchestra, except instead of musicians, they're managing all these automated systems.
Gotcha. Keeping them in sync.
Exactly. Then you've got maintenance technicians, all about preventing those problems before they even happen. Think of them like a pit crew, keeping everything running smooth.
So like two totally different paths, but they both kind of come from that same basic technician skill set.
Yep.
Wild.
Oh, and there's more. There's instrumentation and controls technicians. Now, these guys, they're laser focused on precision, making sure all the instruments and controls within a whole system are calibrated just right.
Huh. Never even thought about that.
And of course, you can't forget the people working directly with the robots. Robotics and automation service technicians. Those are your robot whisperers. Making sure those robots are working at peak performance.
So basically, the skills you build as a technician could lead to a whole bunch of different specialized options.
Absolutely. And it all goes back to this fundamental need for automation. It's reshaping how we work, you know?
So let's step back for a sec. Why is automation such a big deal right now? I get the cool factor, the futuristic vibe, but what's really driving this need?
Okay, imagine this. A factory, right? But all the tough, repetitive work, it's all done by robots. They don't get tired, they're super precise, and they can work 24/7.
Okay, so now the humans can focus on stuff that actually needs a brain.
Exactly. Creativity, problem solving, the stuff humans are good at.
Yeah.
It lets businesses work smarter, more efficient, less mistakes, and boom, they're more competitive.
So it's like automation is actually boosting productivity.
Yeah.
And it opens up totally new possibilities.
You got it. And it's funny because this source you sent actually says that this whole idea of reducing how much we depend on humans for those tasks is a big reason why so many industries are growing so fast.
Makes sense. But didn't the document also mention some potential downsides? Something about the risk of making societal inequalities worse if we're not careful with how we use it.
Oh, for sure. That's a big one and something we got to watch out for. We can't just automate everything without thinking about the people and communities it affects. If we're not careful, automation could actually make the gap bigger between those who benefit from it and those who don't.
So like any powerful tool, I guess, it matters how you use it.
Good way to put it. And that's why this whole technician to automation specialist shift is so important. You're not just learning skills, you're becoming a leader in shaping how this tech is used.
So it's not just about robots and code.
Nope.
It's about using your skills responsibly. And that's where your experience as a technician already gives you a huge advantage.
You already get the systems, the processes, you know where the issues might be.
Yeah.
You're in a perfect spot to guide this whole transition.
Okay, this is fascinating stuff, but I know our listeners are probably thinking, okay, great, but how do I actually make that jump? So let's get into that.
It's funny, this automate your way out of the technician role thing actually lays out a pretty clear roadmap for this whole transition.
Oh, that's awesome. I bet our listeners are dying to know what those steps are. What's the first thing they suggest?
Well, they start with what they call educational advancement.
Okay.
And, as a technician, you've already got a solid foundation.
Mm.
But to really take things to the next level, you might need to think about a bachelor's degree or maybe some specialized certifications in automation.
Makes sense. When you say certifications, what kind of stuff are we talking about? Are there any specific ones that are like really valuable in the field?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There are a couple that are pretty much the gold standard in the automation industry.
Mm.
One is the Certified Control Systems Technician. That's the CCST.
Mm-hmm.
And that shows you really know your stuff when it comes to designing, installing, and maintaining control systems.
Gotcha.
Then there's the Certified Automation Professional, the CAP.
Okay.
And that one's more focused on the whole automation life cycle, from planning and design all the way to implementing and optimizing.
So these certifications are like proof that you've got the skills employers are looking for?
Exactly. They give you that extra credibility.
Right. Like a stamp of approval.
Pretty much.
Okay. So education and certifications, that's a good start. But the source also talked about skill development.
Right.
What kind of skills are we talking about here?
Oh, automation's all about constantly learning new things. Got to keep up with all the latest tools and technologies. The programming languages, those are crucial.
Right. Anything specific that's really hot right now?
One area that's just exploding is programmable logic controllers.
Programmable what now?
Programmable logic controllers, or PLCs for short.
PLCs.
These things are basically the brains of tons of automated systems. So knowing how to program them and troubleshoot them, that's super important.
PLCs, huh? Sounds pretty high tech. Is that something you can just learn on your own, or is it better to take a course or something?
There's definitely stuff online, books, that kind of thing.
Right.
But a structured course, whether it's in person or online, can be a really good way to get a solid foundation.
Makes sense.
Plus, you get that hands-on experience, which is key.
Speaking of hands-on experience, the source really emphasized building a portfolio, too.
Oh, for sure.
What did they say about that?
They were all about finding ways to actually work on real automation projects.
Oh.
Even if it's like volunteer stuff or just personal projects, it's a chance to put those skills you're learning to the test.
So it's not just about what you know, it's about what you can actually do.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be some big fancy thing. Automating a task around the house, contributing to an open source project, anything like that can be really valuable.
Cool. So it's almost like building your own little automation lab.
Exactly. A place where you can experiment, tinker around, really hone those skills.
And you know what? Documenting those projects and putting them online, that could be a really good way to show potential employers what you're capable of.
Great point. It's like building a showcase for your skills.
Exactly. This whole portfolio thing reminds me of another important step the source talked about. Networking.
Oh, networking. Yeah. Can't forget about that.
Super important, right? Especially in a field that's growing as fast as automation.
For sure. Going to industry events, joining online communities, connecting with people on LinkedIn, all that stuff can open doors you wouldn't believe.
And I bet those events and communities are also great places to find mentors.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Mentorship, that's another crucial element the source highlighted.
It's like having someone who's been there, done that to guide you along the way.
Exactly. They can help you figure out your strengths and weaknesses, introduce you to the right people, give you feedback on your work, all kinds of stuff.
So where can someone find a mentor in this field? Any tips?
There are actually a bunch of organizations and programs that connect aspiring automation professionals with experienced mentors.
Oh, cool. Like what?
Well, one example is the International Society of Automation, or ISA.
Okay.
They've got a mentorship program specifically for people in automation.
Nice. So there are resources out there.
Yeah, and even just reaching out to people you admire on LinkedIn or striking up conversations at industry events, that can be a good way to start building those connections.
Just put yourself out there.
Exactly. Don't be shy. Ask for advice. Most people are happy to help.
It's funny, we're talking about robots and technology and all this futuristic stuff, but it seems like human connection is still super important.
Couldn't agree more. And you know what? This Automation's Made Easy course description you sent,
yeah,
it actually seems to touch on a lot of these points we've been talking about.
You know, that course really caught my eye, too. What stood out to you about it?
Well, one thing I liked was how practical it is.
Yeah.
It's not just a bunch of theory. It's about giving you the actual tools and techniques to build and implement automated systems.
So it's perfect for someone coming from a technician background where you're already used to working with your hands.
Exactly. It seems like a really good bridge between the theory and the doing, you know?
And they talk about starting small, picking the right tools for the job, all that stuff.
It doesn't feel overwhelming like they're going to throw you in the deep end right away.
That's good to hear, especially if you're just starting out.
And another thing that was interesting, they talk about how important it is to understand business processes and how automation can be used to make things more efficient and productive.
So it's not just about the techie stuff. It's about understanding how it all fits into the bigger picture.
Exactly. And that's key if you want to move up from technician to, you know, a leadership role in automation.
Makes sense. You got to see the forest for the trees, right?
Yep. And that actually leads us right back to something we touched on earlier. The role of human expertise in this whole automated world.
Oh, right. The document mentions some case studies from the insurance industry, didn't it?
Yes. And it's fascinating because those case studies show that even with all these online platforms and automated processes, human expertise is still super important.
You'd think it would be the opposite, right? Like the more automation we have, the less we need humans.
You'd think so, but it's actually the opposite. Human expertise might be even more valuable now.
I'm really curious to hear more about that. What were some of the key takeaways from those case studies?
Well, one of the big ones was that automation isn't about replacing humans altogether.
Okay.
It's about giving them superpowers.
Superpowers?
Yeah. It frees us up to focus on the things that require human touch.
Yeah.
Critical thinking, problem solving, empathy, all that good stuff.
But it's not humans versus machines. It's humans and machines working together.
Exactly. And the case studies had some really good examples of how this actually works in the real world.
Oh, cool. Like what?
Well, one example was an insurance agent who was using an online platform to generate quotes for her clients super fast.
Okay.
But then she was also using her knowledge and experience to give them personalized advice and guidance.
So the tech helped her do the routine stuff quickly, and then she could step in and provide that human touch.
Exactly. And that's where the real magic happens.
Yeah.
Automation can handle the repetitive, data-driven stuff.
Right.
But it's the humans who interpret the results, make those judgment calls, and provide that personalized experience that customers really value.
That's a good point. It makes you feel like even in an automated world, human skills are still really important.
Absolutely. And honestly, they might even become more important as automation takes over those more routine tasks.
Oh, so?
Well, think about it. If machines are doing all the mundane stuff, then the things that make us human creativity, problem-solving, emotional intelligence, those become even more valuable.
So it's not just about technical skills anymore. It's about those soft skills that are hard to automate.
It's exactly. Empathy, communication, critical thinking. That's what's going to set humans apart in the future of work. And the source really emphasizes how important those skills are for making this transition from technician to automation specialist.
Right.
It's not just about learning the technical stuff. It's about understanding the big picture, anticipating challenges, and being able to adapt as technology keeps changing.
So it's a mix of technical expertise, problem-solving skills, and that human element that ties it all together.
Exactly. And that's what makes this career path so exciting. It's not just about keeping up with technology. It's about shaping the future of work and using automation to make the world a better place.
This has been a really insightful discussion. We've talked about the driving forces behind automation, the steps to becoming an automation specialist, all that good stuff. But before we wrap up, I want to make sure our listeners have some practical advice they can use right now. So we've covered a ton of ground, from why automation is such a big deal to how to actually become an automation specialist. But for someone listening who's like, all right, I'm ready, what do I do now? Where do they even start?
You know, I think the very first thing is to just take a step back and look at where you're at right now. What skills do you already have? What are you interested in? And what do you actually want to be doing in 5, 10 years? You know, what parts of automation really get you excited? And what areas do you feel like, okay, I need to work on this?
So it's kind of like taking inventory of your skills and your goals before you jump in.
Exactly. Once you have a good idea of where you're starting from, then you can start to map out a plan that actually works for you.
Right. And speaking of paths, we talked about the automate your way out of the technician role document and how it mentioned education.
Right.
So how important is it really to get a bachelor's degree or go after those certifications we were talking about?
It's tough to say, honestly. It depends on what you want to do and what those specific jobs require,
Sure.
Some companies might want that 4-year degree. Others might care more about experience and certs.
So there's no one right answer.
Nope. It's about finding what fits your situation, really.
And the good news is there are so many ways to learn now, both online and in person.
Yeah, for sure.
You can find something that matches how you learn best, when you have time, and what you can afford.
Exactly. Oh, and don't forget about all the free stuff out there. There are tons of tutorials online, articles, even those open source projects.
Oh, really?
Where you can learn by actually doing.
It's crazy how much information is just out there if you know where to look.
I know. It's awesome. And that kind of brings us back to the hands-on experience thing. As you're learning all this new stuff, try to find ways to actually use it. Look for projects at work, or even just stuff you can do on your own, where you can mess around with automation and build up your portfolio.
That portfolio, that's super important, right? It's proof that you can actually walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
You got it. And those projects, they don't have to be anything crazy complicated, even if you're just automating something simple at home or, helping out with an open source project. It's all good experience, and it shows initiative.
So it's all about taking what you're learning and actually using it in the real world.
Exactly. And while you're doing all that, don't forget about networking. Talk to people in the field, go to those industry events, join online communities, all that stuff. You never know what kind of connections you might make or who might be able to give you some great advice.
Or even become a mentor.
Oh, yeah. Finding a mentor can make a huge difference. Look for people who have already made that technician to automation specialist jump, or who are doing the kind of work you want to be doing.
Okay, but how do you actually find a mentor?
Well, there are some professional groups. Like we talked about, the International Society of Automation, the ISA, they have mentoring programs specifically for automation people.
Oh, perfect.
You can also check out people you admire on LinkedIn, or just ask around in your network,
So it's about putting yourself out there.
Yep. Don't be afraid to ask for advice. Most people are happy to help. And when you're talking to people, don't forget to highlight what you bring to the table.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. As a technician, you already have a really good understanding of these systems and processes that are getting automated.
Right.
You know how things work. You know how to fix them when they break.
Yeah.
And you can talk to both the techie people and the non-techie people, which is super important.
That's true. So it's about using that experience as a jumping off point.
Exactly. And remember, this whole thing is a journey, not a race. There could be bumps along the way. You're going to be learning new things all the time.
So it's about having that always be learning attitude.
You got it. Don't be afraid to experiment, try new things, push your boundaries a little bit. That's how you really grow.
Well, this deep dive has been amazing. We talked about why automation matters, how the technician role is changing, and how to actually become an automation specialist. Hopefully our listeners are feeling pumped and ready to get started.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I want to leave everyone with one last thought. As automation changes the world of work, remember that your skills and experiences are valuable. Don't be afraid to embrace the possibilities. Stay curious and keep learning. The future of automation is happening right now, and you can be a part of it.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks so much for being here.
Anytime. It was fun. Thanks for tuning in to the Small Business Accelerator podcast.
We really hope today's strategies help you grow your business without breaking the bank.
Don't forget to check the show notes for links to resources we've handpicked for small business success.
If you found value in today's episode, it would make our day if you subscribed to the podcast and left us a review.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And stay tuned for our next episode. Next time, we'll reveal yet another game-changing strategy that's revolutionizing how small businesses on a shoestring budget take on giant corporations and accelerate their success.
Until then, keep accelerating your success.
This is Sarah Wilson.
And Roger Bryant, signing off.